Let's keep our marriage private from now on, Marcus said casually over dinner. His words hit me like a bomb. After 15 years together, he suddenly wanted to keep our marriage a secret. I stared at him, my fork frozen in the air. Private? I repeated. Why? Marcus shifted in his chair, avoiding my eyes. It's for work. My new promotion. It's complicated. I watched him closely. His fingers tapped nervously on the table. He had been acting strange lately, working late, glued to his phone, suddenly obsessed with the gym. I had ignored the signs, but now I couldn't anymore. Of course, I said softly. He sighed in relief, thinking I believed him. That night, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed. I wasn't the type to check his messages, but something felt off. A preview flashed on the screen. Can't wait for next week, baby. Found the perfect dress for our ceremony. My stomach dropped. My hands steady. I picked up the phone and unlocked it. Message after message filled the screen. Marcus had been planning a secret wedding with Emma, his 24-year-old assistant. He didn't want a divorce because he didn't want to split our assets. Instead, he planned to marry Emma in a private ceremony while keeping me as his legal wife. Just on paper. I put the phone back exactly as I found it. Then I opened my laptop and started typing. I emailed Linda, my best friend and a private investigator. Then James, my lawyer brother. Finally Sarah, Marcus's boss and an old friend of mine. Looking forward to coffee tomorrow, I wrote to Sarah. There's something about your new assistant you should know. When Marcus came to bed, he kissed my forehead. I love you, he whispered. I kept my breathing steady, pretending to be asleep. He had no idea that by tomorrow, his secret plan would start falling apart. The next morning, I kissed him goodbye as usual. As soon as he drove off, I called Linda. Got your email, she said. Your husband's been busy. Let's meet for coffee. An hour later, I sat with Linda, looking at the evidence she had gathered. Pictures of Marcus and Emma, money transfers to a secret account, $200,000 so far. They booked Silver Lake Resort for their ceremony next Saturday, Linda said. Emma's been telling people she's marrying a divorced man. I sipped my coffee. And the money? Linda nodded. He's been moving small amounts to keep it hidden. My phone buzzed. Sarah confirming our lunch. Another step in my plan. I thought about the years I had spent building a life with Marcus. While I was planning our future, he was planning his escape. But he made one big mistake. He underestimated me. As I drove to meet Sarah, my phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I smiled and replied, of course, honey, take all the time you need. He had no idea his plan was already crumbling. I grabbed my folder of evidence and walked into the building, ready to take back control of my life. Sarah's face darkened as she looked through the photos and messages I'd brought. I knew something was off about their dynamic, she said, setting down her coffee. Emma's been pushing for a promotion, and Marcus has been supporting it aggressively. Now I understand why. I watched my friend process the information, her expression shifting from shock to anger. As chief operating officer, Sarah had been the one to promote Marcus to department head last year. She trusted him, mentored him. The ceremony is next Saturday, she asked, her voice tight. I nodded. At Silver Lake Resort, they're telling everyone he's divorced. Sarah picked up her phone, typing quickly. Not anymore. I just canceled their venue reservation. Being COO has its perks. Silver Lake Resort is one of our corporate partners. But that was just the beginning. Over lunch, Sarah revealed more about Marcus's recent business dealings. He'd been pushing for complete control over the department's budget, unusual for his position. Now we knew why. He'd been planning to access more funds. I'm launching a formal investigation into his financial decisions, Sarah said. And Emma, well, let's just say her position is under review. Back at home, I maintained my routine. When Marcus called to say he'd be missing dinner again, I responded with understanding. Don't work too hard, honey, I said sweetly, while simultaneously emailing his financial records to my brother James. The next morning, my phone rang early. It was James, his voice urgent. Liv, you need to see this. Those transfers Marcus has been making, they're not just going to a private account. He's been investing in properties under Emma's name. My hands clenched around the phone. Using our money. Your money, James corrected. Most of the transfers came from the account linked to your photography studio. He's been systematically moving your business profits. I closed my eyes, feeling a cold anger settle in my chest. The photography studio was my life's work, built from years of dedication and sacrifice. Marcus had been dipping into it to build a nest egg with his girlfriend. "What do you need from me?" James asked. "Everything," I replied. "Every document, every transfer, every property purchase. I want it all traced and documented." The next few days passed in a blur of calculated moves. While Marcus thought I was working at my studio, I was actually setting up meetings with financial advisors and lawyers. Linda kept tracking their movements, providing regular updates about their scrambling attempts to salvage their ceremony plans. "They've tried booking 3 other venues," she reported. "Each one mysteriously canceled." Emma's getting frustrated. She keeps posting angry messages about people interfering with true love. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost, but then I remembered the messages, the way they laughed about deceiving me, planning to reduce my marriage to nothing but paperwork while they lived their perfect life using my money. Thursday evening, Marcus came home looking stressed. The ceremony was supposed to be in 2 days, and nothing was going as planned. I watched him pick at his dinner, dark circles under his eyes. "Rough day?" I asked innocently. He ran a hand through his hair. "Just work stuff, nothing for you to worry about." "Of course not," I smiled. "Oh, by the way, Sarah called earlier. She mentioned something about a department audit." Marcus's fork clattered against his plate. "Sarah called you? What? What did she say?" "Not much," I shrugged. "Just checking in. We're having lunch tomorrow, actually. It's been too long since we caught up." The color drained from his face. I continued eating calmly, watching him try to maintain his composure. His phone kept buzzing. Probably Emma, panicking about their ruined plans. "I need to make a call," he muttered, rushing from the table. I could hear him in the other room, his voice urgent and hushed. "We need to postpone. No, listen to me. Everything's falling apart. I don't know how." While he was distracted, I forwarded Linda's latest report to Sarah and James. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial misconduct, misuse of company resources, unauthorized fund transfers. Marcus hadn't just planned to betray our marriage, he compromised his professional integrity in the process. That night, as we lay in bed, Marcus reached for my hand, something he hadn't done in months. I let him take it, feeling his palm sweaty against mine. "Liv," he said softly, "you know I love you, right?" I turned to look at him, this man I'd loved for 15 years, who'd planned to reduce our life together to a secret shame while he built a new life with someone else. "Of course," I replied, my voice steady. "We should keep that private too, shouldn't we?" He flinched at my words but said nothing. We both lay there in silence, but while he was probably worrying about his crumbling plans, I was thinking about tomorrow. About Sarah's scheduled department meeting, about the documents waiting in James' office, about the truth that was about to shatter Marcus's carefully constructed facade. Tomorrow, he would learn that keeping our marriage private had been his biggest mistake, because while he'd been planning his new life with Emma, I'd been ensuring he'd lose everything he was trying to steal from me. I closed my eyes, listening to his uneasy breathing beside me. In less than 24 hours, his perfect plan would completely unravel, and I would be wide awake to watch it all unfold. Friday morning arrived with a storm, both literally and figuratively. Marcus left early for work, kissing my cheek absently. "I might be late tonight," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Actually," I replied, grabbing my car keys, "I'm heading to the office too." Sarah invited me to sit in on the department meeting. He froze, his hand on the doorknob. "What department meeting?" "Oh, didn't she tell you? The whole team's gathering at 9. Something about financial reviews and policy changes." I smiled, watching the color drain from his face. "I'll see you there, honey." I arrived at the office building just as Sarah was gathering everyone in the conference room. Emma was there, her young face glowing with artificial confidence. She faltered when she saw me, quickly looking away. Marcus sat rigidly in his chair, his eyes darting between me, Emma, and Sarah. Sarah stood at the head of the table, her expression professional but stern. "Thank you all for coming. We're here to address some serious concerns about departmental conduct and financial irregularities." The next hour was a masterclass in professional demolition. Sarah methodically outlined every unauthorized transfer, every misused resource, every breach of company policy. With each revelation, Marcus seemed to shrink in his chair while Emma's perfect makeup couldn't hide her growing panic. Furthermore, Sarah continued, we've discovered evidence of an inappropriate relationship between a department head and his subordinate, including the misuse of company funds to purchase properties under false pretenses. Emma burst into tears. He told me he was divorced. He said the money was his. Marcus finally found his voice. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. Please do, I said quietly, speaking for the first time. Explain how you plan to marry your girlfriend while keeping me as your legal wife. Explain how you use my studio's profits to buy properties for your new life. I'm particularly interested in hearing about the private ceremony planned for tomorrow. The room fell silent. Every eye turned to Marcus, then to me, then to Emma, who had suddenly stopped crying. You knew? Marcus stammered. Of course I knew, I replied calmly. I've known since the moment you asked to keep our marriage private. I just waited to see how far you'd go. Sarah cleared her throat. Marcus, Emma, please proceed to HR. Security will escort you. The rest of you are dismissed. As people filed out, some offering me sympathetic glances, others avoiding eye contact entirely, Marcus made one last desperate attempt. Liv, please, he begged. We can talk about this. We can fix things. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Fix things. Like how you plan to fix our marriage by making it a secret, or how you fixed my business accounts by emptying them. I was going to pay it back, he protested weakly. No need, I replied. The company's legal team has already frozen all the accounts and properties. My brother James is handling the recovery of my assets, and since you're so interested in keeping things private, I'm sure you'll appreciate the discretion of the divorce proceedings. Emma, who had been quietly edging toward the door, suddenly turned back. You can't do this. We're in love. I looked at this young woman, barely older than an intern, who thought she could build her happiness on the ruins of my life. Love? You don't even know him, the real him, but you will now. Security arrived to escort them out. As they left, I heard Emma's voice rising hysterically in the hallway. What do you mean the properties aren't in my name? What about the money you promised? I sat alone in the conference room for a moment, letting the morning's events settle. Sarah returned, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. You okay? I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. You know what's funny? He really thought he was being clever, keeping our marriage private while he built a new life. He never realized he was giving me exactly what I needed, time to protect myself. That evening, I returned to an empty house. Marcus's belongings would be collected later under supervision. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in my favorite chair, the one with the perfect view of the garden I planted when we first moved in. My phone buzzed with a message from Linda. Emma's posting on social media again. Something about betrayal and true love being crushed by cruel manipulators. Want me to send screenshots? I replied with a simple no need and turned off my phone. The storm had passed, and in its wake, I found not devastation but clarity. Marcus had wanted to keep our marriage private, hidden away like a shameful secret. Instead, he hid in himself. His true nature, his dishonesty, his betrayal. 2 months later, my divorce was finalized with little fanfare. Marcus, facing company investigations and legal proceedings for financial misconduct, agreed to my terms without argument. Emma had long since disappeared, probably in search of another divorced man to rescue. I kept the house, my studio, and every penny he tried to steal. More importantly, I kept my dignity. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making a scene or fighting back loudly. It's quietly dismantling someone's perfect plan while they think you're in the dark. Marcus had wanted privacy. In the end, that's exactly what he got. The privacy to reflect on his choices alone.